Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Don Charles has been called a lot of things. According to some, the worst trainer in Britain. And he didn't like that title. He was very offended by it, is what I heard. People question his emotional persona, but not in a positive way that it actually hinders him as a trainer. They looked at fighters that he trained, former light heavyweight British champion Frank Buglioni and Derek Chisora, and they questioned what is Don teaching them. They don't seem to have technique. They seem very unrefined. But even his harshest critics would have to eat their words, as Don has turned it around somewhat. Now this year, the question we're asking, is Don Charles the trainer of the year? Shortly after hooking up with Daniel Dubois last year, Daniel was stopped in a challenge for the unified heavyweight titles against Alexander Usyk. But he followed that up on the date of reckoning, Riyadh season, in December, stopping Jarrell Miller, the undefeated American. Opened up 2023 on the 5 vs 5, Queensberry vs Matchroom, stopping the interim IBF heavyweight champion, the unbeaten Filipe Govic, and then followed up by knocking out the former twice unified champion Anthony Joshua.
I advised when Stan and Daniel were parting ways because I was continuing to train Caroline. Frank Warren was adamant. Frank Warren wants Daniel to go to Ben Davison. And the dad said, "What do you think, Shane?" And I said, "I think that's the wrong move. I think you should go to Don Charles because he's used to training heavyweights. He's going to give a lot of time to you and he is a senior person." And for Daniel, like, he has so much respect and time for his dad, who's a senior man. He's 63 years of age. Don's similar age.
Testimony from Shane McGuigan when Daniel left his camp. Frank Warren was adamant that Daniel should go to Ben Davison. Now, Shane recommended Don Charles. So did Spencer Fearon when he was on better terms with Daniel's dad and Don. And that's how Don ended up getting the gig. The irony that it could have been Ben Davison who trained Anthony Joshua, who Don engineered Daniel to defeat just the other week. Yeah, pretty ironic. So in the industry, Don has been respected for a minute. But going by what Shane is saying there, he nearly didn't get the gig. And apparently, I've heard Frank wasn't happy. When Daniel did the hookup with Don Charles, he wasn't happy.
Along the way, some things happened to you where you're now, he's become my biggest critic, based with no foundation. I don't know what I've done to you, my friend. Daniel in particular, you've got it wrong every time, my dear friend. Every wrong, badly wrong. Yeah.
Well, what with Daniel, you mean?
Yeah, your predictions.
It's not against
just the way,
you,
no, wait.
that.
It's just the way you say it. There's this deeper thing. That's what gets me. It almost becomes personal.
Take it personal.
So now he's the coach of Daniel Dubois, the current IBF heavyweight champion, coming off one of the most impressive knockout streaks I've seen from a British heavy, or any heavy for that matter, in contemporary boxing history. And Don has been the man behind the man engineering this 4-fight knockout streak for Daniel. So now, when Don is talking to press and media, he's making them squirm for what they've previously said about him as a coach and about the boxers he's trained. He's making them squirm, and he's having the time of his life. And a lot of people are pointing it out that Don's saying a little too much. And he probably is, but he's earned the right. Pick yourself up, Don.
Everybody stop talking now. Attention. I told you, all of my critics, I told you all that I was the greatest of all time. I told you today I'm still the greatest of all time.
What about for the future for Dan? I think maybe he has one eye on the winner of Usyk versus Fury too, but just on that, the thought of him versus Fury, how would you think that fight would go?
I mean, he's a lot better than Francis Ngannou. I think Tyson Fury struggles with guys like physically very imposing people. I don't know how he'd hold up with Daniel's power.
I don't think I'll be mistaken in saying that Shane was edging towards Dubois beating Tyson Fury. But his former freeweight world champion from the UK, Duke McKenzie, here's what he says about potential Tyson Fury, Daniel Dubois fight.
Let's play with that a little bit. How do you feel a Fury versus Dubois fight would go?
Fury against Daniel Dubois.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Dubois smashed him to pieces. On top of his game right now. There aren't enough chinks in his armour right now to suggest that he's going anyway except up.
Duke was one of the few in the mainstream media who stuck to his guns and said that Daniel will beat Anthony Joshua. He also predicted Alexander Usyk to beat Tyson Fury. He doesn't think Tyson Fury is going to show up for the rematch. He's going to look to cash out with a big fight with Anthony Joshua. The Duke doesn't bite his tongue for no one.
If I said it, I meant it. Bite my tongue for no one.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
He also said in the past he would like to fight Alexander Usyk. He's not the biggest of the heavyweights. He is some fighter. I mean, that
respectfully, I would love to share the ring with him.
Yeah.
You know, when I fought here in London Olympic Games, he won the division that I was in. You know, I've always been close to the top. I've always been just in the dark corners, just scratching and clawing, waiting for my opportunities, like I said. So I would respectfully love to fight a fighter like that, you know, and I feel like I do have the style to beat him.
Interesting. I think he needs to focus on Jack Massey. I don't think Jack Massey is anything to sleep on, and I'm sure he's focused on Jack Massey. But a lot of it is timing. USYK cannot go on forever. Olympic gold medalist, heavyweight undisputed as a pro, cruiserweight undisputed, had a lot of WSB fights. So it's not inconceivable that Jai could outspeed USYK. It's not inconceivable. A lot of people are going to look at Jai's last fight with Bradis and say, nah, Beats, there's no way. But what you're forgetting is Bradis gave USYK arguably his toughest fight as a cruiserweight. But that's what someone like Jai has to be aiming towards to maintain quality of performance. It would just stagnate. He has to believe that, yes, I can push myself to eventually beat USYK if he's still champion by the time Jai moves up to heavy. It does look a long way off, it does, but boxing has this weird ability to close the gap on things that we're not seeing in the immediate future. You know, like everybody picking Daniel to win the rematch against Anthony Joshua and knock out Tyson Fury now. It's barely over a year when he still had the quitter tag attached to him. Sometimes it's just timing for the young lions. I've done a poll on YouTube, can Anthony Joshua win a rematch with Daniel Dubois? 56% of the poll said he could. The poll is a decent sample size, 1,000.3 people polled. Are you surprised by that? Are they deluded? Has Daniel not done enough yet to convince them? Or do they have a genuine argument that AJ can make some adjustments and get it back? Well, the poll is in the description box and you can add to it and you can contribute. Before you make your pick, I would advise this though, just for some perspective. The poll is saying, can AJ win a rematch? Not will he win a rematch? Think about it, there is a difference.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Eddie Hearn is talking about moving the main event from 10 p.m. till 9 p.m. The WBO lightweight title fight between Rhiannon Dixon and Terry Harper. When did that start? Around 10 past 9? And the show was done before 10. I was live doing a hangout, and the reaction from most people was, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, you can maybe fit something in extra, go for a drink, get something to eat, go for a run, watch something on television, on YouTube or online. There's also the benefits of transport, trains. It can be an issue, you know, like if you're at the O2, and depending where you live, getting them last trains, etc., etc. You don't want to be rushing about for the last train. You certainly don't want to be doing that. Yeah, there's definitely advantages. There's some people who say they prefer the late finish. The skeptics are thinking it could be a cheapskate move. They might try and push some of the prelim fights into the main portion of the card if there's less time to cheap out on paying for decent fights. I don't see that happening, I could be wrong, but they're probably going to try and spend less time between fights, get them in the ring quicker. But there's always skeptics. It's just being talked about for now. Eddie Hearn said the early finish on Saturday wasn't intentional. There was just a few more early stoppages than predicted.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
And listen, I need you to know, yeah, this is not a safe place if you're an extreme Lomachenko fan saying, well, Loma's getting on now. He's entitled to pick who he wants to fight. It was Tank who ducked him first. The facts are, Tank made the last offer. Lomachenko turned the fight down. And this ain't no safe place for Gervonta Davis fans. Oh, well, we're doing the best because the circumstances aren't ideal. Lomachenko swerved the fight. Well, Tank swerved Lomachenko and he swerved Shakur Stevenson. Lomachenko swerved Shakur Stevenson. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. The last thing I'll have on this channel is people using American boxing politics to excuse why their fighters are doing some bullshit. Bullshit! 10 inside the distance, 25 wins for the current WBA 130-pound champion Lamont Roach. Now, boxing ain't all about punching power. But if you're going to fight Tank Davis and you're not a hitter, then you've got to be an exceptional boxer. But we already saw Jamel Herring school Lamont Roach in the ring. He's also had draws with Orlando Cruz, split decision win over Hector Garcia, who Tank knocked out. It's not the worst fight. They'll bill it that Lamont is the 130-pound WBA champion, but he just doesn't do anything well enough, you would have thought, to beat Tank. And it just looks like another routine stoppage for Tank. But it's not the worst fight. But I don't know how the PBC will justify putting that on pay-per-view. I really don't. There was talk of Tank moving up to 140 to take on WBA champion Rayo Valenzuela. But Valenzuela said he's got a rematch clause with Pitbull Cruz. So they're going to see what's happening with that. There was also talk that Tank wanted to drain Valenzuela. Not much surprise there. Leonard Edderby stepped in and said, y'all just saying this stuff for clicks. But he's drained people before at that weight, hasn't he? So it's not unreasonable people be at least a bit suspicious that he was trying to drain Rayo. But that fight's not happening now. And I don't just want to keep bombing on Tank every fight. If they're going to make these Lamont Roach fights, at least don't put them on the paywall, $60 and $70. That's crazy.
Crazy!
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Here is something you can't understand.
Is Daniel Kinahan ordered to pay damages of $9.7 million to Moses Heredia, poaching JOJO Diaz with money made in the drug trade. The ruling made by the judge brought to an end a 4-year legal battle. Man, I remember that case, and it's only come to a head now. Justice has been done, Heredia said. Heredia saying, I also want to acknowledge the people who have suffered greatly at the hands of Kinahan's organization with our thoughts and prayers, including the great Barry McGuigan. Now is a time for healing for us. We have been heard and justice has been done. Now here, the next thing is they're moving in on his assets and hopes to acquire those already seized to recover the damages. Kinahan was sanctioned by the US government in 2022. There exists a potential $15 million reward for information that could lead to the Kinahan's prosecution. It's alright getting a judgment. Would it be that easy to collect the dough though? The judge wrote, Plaintiff Moses Heredia shall have the judgment in his favor against MTK Global Sports Management, LLC, Paul D. Gibson, Daniel Kinahan, MTK USA, LLC, jointly and severally. What kind of language is that? Legalese. In the total amount of $9,517,500.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
On Twitter, a few people from the Japanese sector, Tokeru. What is Chairman Ohashi cooking? And there's a picture with Inoue and Canelo. And the rumor is December they could be doing a joint card together in Japan. In what some are saying is a gesture of defiance against Riyadh season. We don't need you to get the big money. A lot of people are very excited by that. And that's all well and good. If that's what floats your boat, no problem at all. But they seem to be more interested if they're going to make this power move, which is just alleged right now, rather than who are you going to fight on the card. That I didn't hear come from none of their mouths, because a lot of them are extreme fans of Canelo and Inoue, so they don't care who they fight. Their last two opponents were critiqued by non-fans of theirs, TJ Dehaney for Inoue and Edgar Balanga for Canelo. They were more concerned about who's going to be the main event. Who they're going to fight was way down the list of priorities. But we'll see if that happens. We'll see who's the A side, and we'll see who they fight.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So in July, in what I can only describe as a catalogue of missteps, Janibek Alamkanalai, unified middleweight champion, fainted. Not faint as in to throw a punch, but fainted due to dehydration, due to a strenuous weight cut, putting him out of the title defense against the Russian-New Zealander Andrei Mikailovich in July. That was to take place in Vegas, cancelling the bout. A new purse bid had to be made, and Top Rank lose the purse bid to some relatively unknown Australians. Fight takes place this Friday in Sydney, Australia. And now we're hearing that Janibek is not in Australia. He will be in Australia tomorrow, Wednesday. The fight takes place on Friday. There are concerns because you need to climatize because of the 17-hour time difference between where he resides, California, traveling to Sydney, Australia. Some are asking from the MIKAILOVICH camp, I don't know if it's overconfidence or a lack of respect for Andre, but I've never heard an international fighter request to fly so late. All rather strange from Janibek, has to be said, but he is a bit of an oddball anyway. Who wins this one? I don't know much about the Australian. Is it a routine title defense for Janibek? Or is it a different fight, considering he fainted on the scales and he seems very disrespectful in his preparation here, turning up on Wednesday, when Australia is an awkward commute when you're dealing with a 17-hour time difference.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.